Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. This episode of Slam the Gavel is sponsored by CPS Protect Consulting Services. Child Protective Services cases are among the most frightening experiences any parent can endure. Don't face them alone. With urgent assist by CPS Protect, you get the peace of mind to raise your children as you see fit and the personalized assistance of their team of expert child welfare consultants, former CPS investigators themselves, right when you need it. Get started absolutely free at cpsprotect.com/register, and that is available in all 50 states. Also, one other announcement. Go to the site, pleasedoyourjob.com. We need 2,000 more signatures to get a case reopened. That's pleasedoyourjob.com and sign the petition. I've got a brand new guest on. I have Autumn Mattox on. She's been a victim advocate on a volunteer basis since 2015. And she's also best friends with Judge Mary Elizabeth Bullock. And we're going to talk about how they became good friends. We all met on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about electronic harassment and targeted individuals. So I totally welcome you, Autumn Mattox, to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you for coming on and discussing these highly important topics, which I didn't know existed.
Well, I have been working. I myself was a victim of being electronically harassed, and they use synthetic telepathy, make you quote unquote without the foil hats hear voices, which is very easy to do. As a matter of fact, you can go on to TikTok and look up Dr. Richard Lighthouse or John Sanford, and they have just posted something today that explains how they can take somebody's voice and make you literally hear that voice. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying when they do it. It's not all government based, but I went through it myself back in 2015, actually before that too, right before that. But I lost my vision. I had things happen. I'd been very, very sick for many years, but I heard the voice of my dead father come through. I heard the voice of ex-lovers come through and friends of my family. And I thought it was them talking to me from the grave or from beyond the grave, trying to coerce me into committing suicide, which I did try every way in the world. It went from drinking antifreeze to doing every drug I could to try to commit suicide, being persecuted, accused of things like abortion, being accused of causing the loss of life of people that I never caused the loss of life of. But I'm not the only victim of this. And what ended up happening was after going through this and being persecuted by a group of people in Texas, I had an amazing man named Robert Montez come and save my life, literally, get me out of that situation, let me try to heal because I was traumatized. And at that time, I decided to turn my life around to helping other people going through it because I started hearing more and more about it. And I found that everybody has their own story and I could relate to each and every one of them and make sense out of what they didn't understand. So what I have done in the process of it, I haven't touched narcotics in years and years. I barely even take a sip of alcohol, which I was laughing at Mary Elizabeth's last post online about our adult beverages because it takes this woman 4 days to drink a glass of wine. We are two peas in a pod fighting for civil liberties, fighting for rights. But what has happened is what has happened to me personally, I've seen happen to other people. I had everything in my life stolen from me. I had people try to coerce me into committing suicide, literally tried to commit suicide 4 different times in 1 year because the people I was around, including ex-husbands, ex-boyfriends, my own daughter was involved.
I'm so
and
sorry.
It is absolutely like a cult-like activity. And it comes through that it's Opus Dei, that it's the church persecuting you, that it's the government. It is one of the cruelest, most traumatic experiences somebody can go through. I started hearing stories from other people and I thought, wait a minute, maybe I can do something to help other people. And in the process of all this, I have traveled back to El Paso, Texas. I had very few friends that would even speak to me in El Paso, Texas. And I was like, what is going on? Found out that my name had been tarnished, had been slandered. People thought that I was the worst person in the world. It's called gangstalking. It's called taking your name, making you look like you're a criminal. I looked at my criminal history online and it made it look like I should be Bonnie and Clyde's posters up in the post office. It made it look like I had been responsible for things I never had responsibility for. But what I got put through turned people against me, and they have this targeted watch list that is a scam and a half. They have so much technology that people can use and software to where they can watch people and see people 24 hours a day. People hear this 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I wake up in the morning, the first thing I hear is voice of skull, but I've learned how to control it, not let it control me. I am not on any medications, no psychotics. It does not help people that they call schizophrenic or have psychosis, because they're like, oh, they're talking to voices. They are talking to voices more times than not. And the thing is, it is synthetic telepathy, and it is neural rights that I'm out to change in America, to stop torturing people, stop having people commit suicide, stop having people coerced into committing crimes or into killing themselves. I have literally seen people trying to help me that other people have targeted because they tried to help me. And I believe one of those people was Mary Elizabeth Bullock as well. She here, when I met her in November, I couldn't have gotten here if it hadn't been for my friend Robert Montez that had helped me. But I said, I met this woman on LinkedIn that was responding to my post that I made about online self-harm cults. That was by Elisa Gorbachev. And she has what's called Cyber Night Watch. And it hit me, it hit a note with her, hit a note with me. She said, come out and meet me. And so I came out to meet her. And directly after that, I noticed that she was talking to me every day. And then all of a sudden she dropped off and wasn't talking. She didn't call me at all. So I had to call for a police welfare check. And they came over here and she was by herself in bed. And I said, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get back over there to help her. And when I got back this time, she said, would you mind to stay here? Because I got here, found out that somebody had redirected all her medication, had hacked into all her bank accounts, had frozen her accounts, had bought things like rollerblades for a woman that has MS, is blind, and lupus. They did things like she tried to purchase a puppy online. It was fraud. $4,000 got taken on that. Every single day, there were charges going through her account. And I thought, oh my God, this is the same group from Texas. They came after her because she was trying to support me. And then I started noticing other things happening. Rob Montez tried to set up a GoFundMe. And when he tried to set up a GoFundMe, they hacked into his account and froze him out of his account. So where he had to go get a new phone, it fried his phone. And then what happened after that? He gets pulled over 2 days later in Mesquite, Texas. And while he's in the back of a police car, they searched his vehicle and suddenly found quote unquote paraphernalia and charged him with it and put him in jail. And I thought, my God, they're trying to do everything they can to kill everybody they can, because they think that we're going to get sick and they're going to get away with it because they're acting like they're Illuminati. And it's not Illuminati, it's crime. It is absolute crime. And these people have got to be put to a stop. Sure, they have government programs. Sure, they have persecutions by churches. And there's been a lot of questions about the extremism in the Catholic Church. There's been a lot of questions about the extremism that the government has had with the programs that have been based on people being gang stalked, having MK Ultra, having COINTELPRO. All these things have been coming out for years. I'm very, very versed on it. I have talked to so many people and befriended so many targeted individuals. And when I saw this happen to Mary Elizabeth, I had to put a stop to it somehow. It has put her in financial ruin. And she literally had her insurance go from $165 a month to the next month she gets it in January. And they said they wanted $5,000 from Blue Cross and Blue Shield for a retired federal employee for her to have her infusion treatments. And she said, I'm not going to pay it. And I said, I can't blame you. All that is posted on LinkedIn, all the proof of it.
Oh, yeah.
I went through the same thing by trying to get disability because I, as well, have had a lot of health problems. I'm blind in my right eye completely. I got the vision back in my left eye, thank God. I have had broken bones. I was in the hospital for years, have had sepsis, I had a mild heart attack 4 years ago. I have a growth coming out of the side of my throat. And when I filed for disability 3 times now, I was turned down every time. They said, you don't qualify as being sick or being blind. And I was like, why? And I looked, they said, we can't find any of your medical records. So I started doing my own investigation. I looked into what happened in Dallas, Texas, when I was in the hospital last year, May 2023, and saw that the entire computer systems were down for 1 month in Dallas, Texas. I have proof of all this. And during that month, they had everything that was breached: people's medical history, their criminal history, all their records, everything. And so when I got the paperwork back that said you cannot have health insurance, you cannot have disability, I was like, well, why? And they said, well, you don't have any medical records. And I was like, and I have all the medical records sitting right here in my lap that show that I've had biopsies done, that I've had a heart attack, that I've had vision problems, that I was blind. And yet they've done everything they could to hack into absolutely everything about me. They wanted my inheritance. They stole my ex-boyfriend, stole my vehicle, stole my stimulus payments. They actually filed my taxes and said that it was me that filed it, got my stimulus payments, and then stole that. It is the worst crime group in the world. And they think they get away with it because they have a few friends that are feds, or they have a few friends that are politicians that say they can get away with it by persecuting somebody for something because they convince them that that person had fault at something. And this is the same thing that Mary Elizabeth had to go through years ago when she got, lost her law license. And so, they're like, oh, here's another person that was targeted before. We can come back and blame it on the EEOC again. And mind you, she still has a lawsuit she needs to file against the EEOC. She is the most amazing creature in the world to still be alive and be fighting for her life and for the rights of other people.
Oh, definitely.
And you're the same way, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
But I realized that being from El Paso, Texas, I put in for almost a year and a half. Every way in the world they tried to keep me from getting another birth certificate to where I could even get health insurance. And what I did is I sent it to them. They'd say, oh, that's an expired driver's license. We can't give you a birth certificate with that. When all my ID had been stolen, everything of mine was stolen. Everything I owned, all my beautiful china, all my beautiful things, all my beautiful everything that belonged to my mother, they went after. Everything that belonged to my father. My father was a retired county judge in El Paso, Texas. And he was an amazing creature. My mother was the most beautiful creature in the world. My brother was killed in 2000 in a freak accident. It's like they realized that my family was gone. My half brother doesn't give a shit about me anyways. Excuse my French.
Oh, that's okay.
But the things that I went through, I hired attorneys to take care of marijuana possessions before that never took care of the deferrals, and they still show up on my criminal history. Probably be changed now, but I have the proof of it sitting in my hands. I had things that were changed as far as the girl that I had the accident with, I told you about earlier, where they showed that it was one day she died on March 30th, 2008. Her name was Amy Pallister. The other one was March 31st, 2008. That wasn't even the year she died. And then it showed that it had been updated in 2023. That's a long time for it to be updated. It was all about what she got as a settlement, what she did. She had overdosed on some medication. They considered, and they tried to blame me for her death. I spent $500,000 taking care of this woman. I hired attorneys to protect her and me. Those attorneys, I can't mention their names right now, but because it's going to be in a lawsuit. But her mother and her brother were never there helping with any of it. I did everything for her. I put her through rehab. I put her through her surgeries. I paid for all of it until she had Medicaid, which was just a few weeks before I saw her for the last time. These people that think that they are doing God's work, as they call it, and persecuting or social justice need to be put to a stop. Sure, there's the government programs, but there's also the people that try to act like you were the worst person in the world and you committed these crimes that you never had anything to do with. They even came back and tried to accuse me of having something to do with the murders of 2 women in Juarez, Mexico, back when I lived there. And this is something that I was questioned on. I went back to Juarez myself last year and stayed there for 30 days thinking I was going to file for political asylum to get out of the U.S. because of what was being done to me. But I also went there to try to get another friend released from prison because one of them had been in there for 14 and a half years and was literally sentenced in Mexican prison with no constitutional rights to all that time when he could not have committed those murders because he was with me. So I was not afraid. I mean, and then in the process of that, I opened up a whole other can of worms with looking at the immigrants coming from across from Mexico. And I've been making comments on that every day. This country has been infiltrated by so much crime that it's scary. But they don't realize that the domestic crime is just as bad as the immigrants that are coming across the border that are not Hispanic. They're from all other countries. I have watched I am so active on LinkedIn and I get very involved. I've reached out so much to different law enforcement agents. I have reached out to retired, and let me tell you what, there's one man that I respect entirely. His name is Kenneth Strange, and I got to say his name. He is a retired FBI agent, and he was kind enough to reach out several times and give support on the posts I did. Wasn't afraid to put his face there. Has been in touch with me and Mary Elizabeth, trying to help me get an investigator to look into everything that's happened. He is an amazing human being. I think if I tried not to get him as involved or get anybody that involved, but it seems like when I look at who's been looking at my profile, you see Homeland Security, FBI, and I connected with a lot of those people, but I've been trying to bring attention to what happened to Mary Elizabeth because this woman is my life. I adore her.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the process of it, trying to get Rob over here to help us, he gets arrested. And I'm like, this targeting has got to stop. It is to a point of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And people have gained financially. I have an ex-husband and a daughter who are living in a huge house that couldn't even afford the house payments they were living in a trashed out house that was awful with like about 20 cats living in it. And an ex-boyfriend who used me for making his house payments. I went through being raped financially, emotionally, physically. I went through trauma, terror, ended up floating in a pool upside down. And did anybody call an ambulance? No, they didn't. Never called an ambulance. And you know what? I got out of there. Once I got away from Dallas, Texas, I was able to get my head together enough to realize I had to do something. If this was happening to other people, I wanted to help them. That's what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary Elizabeth started having things happen to her. She about had a nervous breakdown through all this stuff. Uh-huh. And I've done everything I could to make things easier. It's like I feel like I'm on a baseball team and they keep throwing a curveball, but I keep batting it and knocking it out of the field. It is ridiculous what they can do to somebody's reputation, how they can hack in and get your medication to where you can't even get it. I have not had any medication that I needed for my own blood pressure in a year, unless it was given to me by somebody that was taking the same medication because I couldn't afford it. I had every bit of my finances completely hacked into and stolen. And I'd inherited everything from my family. Oh. I had my half brother and his wife turn their backs on me. I had my ex-husband and my daughter move into a great house and all their friends living in great houses. And he's always been into fraud and he's an idiot, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And my ex-boyfriend steal my vehicle, stole all my belongings I had. And I had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of antiques and they stole all of it because they thought they could. Because I was blind, I was sick, and they thought I'd just die and they'd be able to keep everything that way. And they thought that Mary Elizabeth was just going to die. And I'm sure they probably came after her every way in the world. And this woman has given her life for civil service. Mm-hmm. And to see that this needs to be brought to the attention of so many people and other federal employees have probably experienced some of these things happening to them. I know she has friends that I talked to the other day that came out in support on LinkedIn with us that said that they'd gone through the same thing and they had to move to Mexico for a year to go to rehab, to let themselves rehab. Mm-hmm. And then came back to fight the fight. And I think they're amazing human beings. I'm in touch with people like Sir John West in the UK, who has been targeted as well. And he asked for Mary Elizabeth and me to support him on something. He supports us on everything. And that man's amazing. I have had people that I've met on LinkedIn that have reached out to me, that have shared their stories with me. There's people with brain damage from these things happening to them. Mm-hmm. I have records right here in my hands that show that I have hemorrhaging on the side of my brain. And yet they say that I don't qualify for disability when I paid my taxes my whole life.
Right. Yeah.
It's to a point of asinine. It is, and they can control people's thoughts, their emotions. And it's almost like an experiment. And they just pass laws in Chile to where they don't have where people have more neural rights there. They need to pass that here because people have been targeted. And people are like, oh, these people are crazy. They have the foil hats on. This is not a conspiracy. This is something that's happening every single day. Mm-hmm. Every single day, there's people going through torture. Mm-hmm. There's people that have implants in their bodies to where they're constantly under surveillance. They're constantly harassed. They're constantly targeted every way in the world. Some of them are hit with direct energy weapons. I can't think of a day that I haven't felt pain in my chest when my blood pressure is well over 200 on the top and well over 150 on the bottom every single day. But still, I'm alive. And I think that's the power of God coming through me, keeping me alive. And Mary Elizabeth is one of the strongest women I've ever known, but I saw her falling to pieces and now she's coming back together and I'm so proud of her. She is an amazing human being. Mm-hmm. And she has friends like you that I think the world of too. I love your shows. I've watched them so much.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have any questions about anything else I do?
With the gang stalking and with the religions, how would you say a religion, church, whatever, how would they gang stalk?
Well, let me explain to you what happened to me at one point. I had lost my vision completely and was completely blind. I had 2 detached retinas. Yet all of a sudden I was having visions of somebody standing there making this sign to me. It was like, and they were telling me, it's time for you to ascend. It's time for you to go. And I was like, I had this experience where I saw what I thought was Jesus Christ at that time and a disciples of Jesus by him sitting there reading through a Bible. And I didn't understand what was happening at the time. It was terrifying to me. And I ended up leaving that's when I left my ex-husband and my daughter. They were involved in that at the time. And it's a cult. It's like a cult-like activity. But I went through persecution over abortion. I went over persecution over things that I never did have fought for. And the thing is, I've watched it as it's gone on, and it's like they tried to cover their tracks. And there's certain people in Austin, Texas, that are admittedly part of a group called Opus Dei, and they say they do God's work, or it's a cult. It is a terrifying thing somebody has to go through. They feel like they can hack into things and say you're on a terrorist watch list and persecute you and make you just disappear. I have watched people hang themselves. I mean, not watched them, but I've watched the stories. People I know, people I don't know, and I'm like, my God, the same thing happened to them. They did everything they could to kill themselves, because it's horrifying to think that this has been happening. And people have no idea. Oh, they just committed suicide. We have no idea why they committed suicide. Or they suddenly just, had something happen with their health, or they suddenly just died. And it's not just suddenly dying. It's the fact that they have been targeted, that they have had the voice to skull on them, telling them, well, you should kill yourself. I remember hearing a voice going, kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. It was like a megaphone coming through.
Wow.
I remember my dead father's voice coming through, which all they had to do was get an old cell phone of his and get his voice off of there, and they could clone it, make me think I was talking to my dad. Which I was like, am I talking to heaven? Oh wow.
Isn't that like with AI?
Yes, it's done with artificial intelligence. Yes. And it is a horrifying, terrifying thing. And when you're blind and you're going through it, my yearning to hear my mother's voice and to hear my father's voice the way I did made it even more intense. It really did. And all my family that I care about, with the exception of my daughter, who I used to adore, are dead. And I should never have been ever having my ex-husband, who's not even the father of my daughter, involved in her life. I blame myself for that. But it's a blame that I can't keep on my shoulders forever, because I'm not the one that turned him into what they are now. And to think that they could never even live in a house that they couldn't even pay the rent on, and now they have a brand new house, brand new cars, it makes me ill. It really does. People put more value in material possessions than they do in human life. And they don't realize that there's repercussions even after they die. And I do. I truly believe that. And I believe that it's the hand of God that kept me alive. I believe that it is definitely, I entirely believe in God. I don't believe in organized religion as much anymore. Because I think, as a good friend of mine in El Paso, Texas, told me that if there's two or more gathered together in a religious setting, more than likely there's going to be some kind of corruption. And it's true. It ended up being very true.
Right.
But I do believe in God. I have a very high faith in God.
I mean, I've had other guests on talking about gang stalking, and it's through the court system, which maybe even happened to me now that I look back at it, at my case.
Right.
But it was legal harassment, the legal abuse, and other underhanded things that were done in there that other parents are going through as well.
Yes. Gang stalking is one of the cruelest things people can go through. They have what they call mobbing. They have groups of people that have literal surveillance on you 24 hours a day. They know where you are. They know when you leave your house. They know what you're doing. They know when you're driving your car. They mess with the mechanics of your car. They can literally cause accidents to happen. They will run you off a road. They will intentionally do things to cause you to think things. Like they'll have certain groups of people. It's kind of like, how they used to do the mob flashes with people where they just all of a sudden start doing something in public. Well, they do that, and it's to where people start thinking, am I crazy, or are these people following me? No, they're following you.
Mhm.
And they do things like they hack into your electronics, they hack into your everything, they turn your friends, your family against you.
Mhm.
They make you they start, doing the synthetic telepathy to where you're hearing these voices. They do things like they get online and they hit trigger words to where people see those trigger words and they say, oh, this is this person doing this, this is this person doing this. And so that, they automatically think that it's that person, whether it be a politician, whether it be somebody with the clergy, whether it be somebody, whoever it is. And they do things like, oh, we're gonna cause this to happen to somebody, and something will happen to them. I have one woman that I advocate to in Minnesota that has been put through so much, and they keep saying, we know what you did when you were 13 years old. She's 60. We know
Oh.
what you did when you were 13 years old, and we're going to call you a pedophile because you had sex back then. This is what you did. And we have videos of you. And they set her up with a honeypot relationship where she has had hell break loose with everything. She's afraid to leave her house. She goes to the gym and they come pick on her. She goes to the gas station, they pick on her. And I'm one of the only people that understands her, and she's petrified, you know. I
Mhm.
have other people that I know that have been targeted by the government that have implants in their body, and it has debilitated them to where they can't even function, and they don't understand why it's happened to them. I have other people as well that have the same thing I do, where they've had horrible groups of people come after them and target them. I have a friend in Arkansas that's going through the same thing. There's a group called PAX,
Mhm.
and the man that runs it, his name is Derek Robinson, and he is amazing. And that is People Against Covert Torture. And there's also another group. It's called iCater. They do kind of the same thing, but they're based in the UK. And there's also a group that is called Targeted Justice that is based out of Houston, Texas, that I got associated with. And that's where Dr. Richard Lighthouse and an amazing attorney named Anna Toledo are making a huge difference. They have cases in front of the Supreme Court now. They've had so many things happen. They teach you how to see if you have implants. They have tried to reach out to people to do lawsuits, but for so long people were like, yeah, targeted individuals, these people are crazy, these are the psychotic ones. But what they do is they have organized stalking, and there's over 6 million people, they say, that are the gang stalkers that are focused on harassing these certain groups of people. People have like, I lost almost all the friends I used to have. They don't matter to me anymore. I have become a stronger person and a more faith-first person than I ever was in my life. And people that claim to be friends of mine in the past, I don't consider friends anymore. The ones that stuck by my side, that knew that I was having a hard time and were still there for me and loyal to me, I will never forget, because I love those people with all my heart. But I've seen things happen to people just for trying to help people that are targeted, just for trying to be there for them, like my friend Robert Montez.
Mhm.
I have There's a family named the Lopez's in El Paso, Texas, that have had so much happen to them. I adore that family with every bone in my body and love them dearly. And I have other friends there that I reached out to, tried to contact. Absolutely didn't have anything to do with me. And I thought, what in the hell is going on? I didn't understand it. When I had built my life, I took care of my mother, who died very young, was in a wheelchair for years, did all her medical. I took care of my father till he died. I took care of the woman who they accused me of causing the loss of life of.
Mhm.
Nobody else raised a finger to help me with her. And I did everything, absolutely everything. And I was the one that was the driver in the car when she had an accident, but she got a humongous settlement.
Mhm.
And they tried to hide that and go after that. These people are so cruel and awful. I've seen it happen not just to me. I've seen people that have literally live in their cars and
Mm.
cannot even function in normal life until they get a grip on themselves. And I've seen there's a couple women, I can't mention their names, that I respect so much for the way they are, because they've been able to grasp it,
Mhm.
deal with it, and become better people because of it, and become almost like a higher plane. And I think the world of the people that have been able to grasp it and not let it kill them. But when you're getting hit constantly with these, as I call, direct energy weapons or computer interfaces, I get hit in my chest constantly, and it feels like I have heartburn that starts at the bottom of my stomach, comes all the way up my throat. And then all of a sudden I have this thing pop out of my throat. I'm like, wow. I have tests here that show that they were doing biopsies on me. What happened to all those tests? They just disappeared. They made them delete them. And it makes me ill that somebody can hack into a computer. It means somebody on the inside helped them, because you can't get into things like that. It shut down the entire
Right.
city of Dallas. I have paper. If you'll look at my LinkedIn
Oh.
profile, I had it on there where I showed that it shut down the entire systems in Dallas, Texas. They called them the Royals. And they had 22,000 people that lost all their information. It was breached, and they could change anything they wanted to in there.
Uh,
Yeah, for almost a month. They couldn't even have city council make a vote
do you
because
think,
none of their computer systems worked.
geez, do you think people should collect their medical records every so often?
I do. I think that is. I think that is one of the most important things somebody could have. Thank God I did have my medical records, because I'm getting ready to fight it in court and fight with disability, Social Security, and all that. I need to fire some attorneys that I had in Texas that didn't represent me correctly, but and get some here in California. But I think it's very important for people to have their records and to keep any criminal history you might have had or deferrals that you could have had, and make sure that those are actually the way that they're listed online. Because if they're not, you can always go back and sue or make grievances, or at least have your records the way they should be. I think it's very, very important that people keep records.
Oh, yes.
And paper records, not digital, because digital, everything can be hacked into digitally now.
Right.
Everything can be. There's absolutely nothing that is private.
Well,
And your cell phones are the ruination of so much. I hate computers. I hate the fact that AI has taken over the world the way they have. I remember as a kid, I used to go out and play on a bicycle. I used to ride in the back of a truck. I used to go make mud pies. Do you think kids do that still today? No, most don't. I understand the Amish religion very much. I really do. Keep kids away from electronics. Keep them away from media. It's sickening to me to see the way that AI and that technology has taken things over, and the way that they can manipulate people, that they can see your thoughts and manipulate your thoughts. It's crazy, but sometimes you need to look up a man whose name is Brian Cothran. And he has a couple videos that are on YouTube as well about targeted individuals, and explains how it's been happening for a long time. It really has, but how they can manipulate somebody's thoughts, their mind, and my God, they did it with me, but I don't let it control me ever, and I never will again. I'm not that weak. It makes people delve into drugs. It makes people delve into anything they can to get them out, and end up at psychiatrists, which does them absolutely no good, because psychiatrists aren't going to be able to help them. This is a awful thing that needs to be put to a stop, and they need to have neural rights to where they cannot monitor people's thoughts. And it is sick. It really is. But if you look into targeted justice, if you look into PACs, if you look into iCater, you'll see that there's actual scientific proof of all these things happening. And the people that, it's awful, but you see people that drive their cars into the FBI gate in Florida. What happened the week before that? He said he was hearing voices in his head. These things, and people that are shooters that go in and do mass shootings, people that do things that they're being coerced into doing. And it needs to be brought to the public. I mean, it's like I can turn on the news. I don't even like to turn on the news, because I can look at the news and it's like, no sooner do I look at something and go, damn, they must have been hearing a voice in their head. Somebody must have been coercing them to do that. I had a friend that was just recently released from Texas prisons, and he had tried to commit suicide 4 times, and is a homosexual male that I absolutely adore. And while he was in Texas prison, he tried to kill himself. And I was like, what happened? And he ended up in the psychiatric unit, and I called and tried to get him released to me, and got him released to me. And what happened on the way to go pick him up, turned out the computer systems detained him again for something that should have been, done at the same time consecutively. I was like, this is ridiculous. They're targeting people for being themselves. He sure had some crimes he committed. Sure, he was on drugs, but he was an angel, and turned him into an absolute robot, seemed like, with anger problems, and then he turned into, thank God he's out now. Thank God he's a good person. He'll hopefully get through it and be able to get the therapy he needs and the help he needs. But to try to kill yourself while you're incarcerated, to where you're finally put, he was in the hospital for a month in Galveston, and he ended up at a psychiatric unit where they treated him with a lot more respect, thank God, than they do at the regular prisons. But those people are incarcerated, and if they're incarcerated and they're having the same thing with the synthetic telepathy happen to them while they're incarcerated, it must be like being in a tiny torture chamber with voices screaming at you all day, 24 hours a day. And it's got to be terrifying. And it can do literal damage emotionally, psychologically, and brain damage.
Now, is this the same thing with when you mentioned the neural? Is this the same thing as MK Ultra?
It's very similar. It's very similar. They have different ways to do it now. They can do it. They can do it. It's very similar to MK Ultra. It's very similar to COINTELPRO. It's very similar to remote neural monitoring, they call it. There's a lot of videos. If you look them up, you can see them. A couple of them are posted on my LinkedIn. A couple of them are posted on TikTok, because some of them they won't let me on LinkedIn. As soon as I had posted some things on LinkedIn one day, my LinkedIn account was completely deleted. It's like boom, and I was knocked off. I had to start over new. And so I've learned to dot my P's and Q's, but I've met some very, very nice people on there that have been very supportive, like you. And I think you're awesome.
Well,
but I found that if you're honest with people, you tell people how it happens, that you can do so much more to help others. And there's so many people don't understand what happened to them. They don't understand gang stalking. They don't know why it's them. They don't know how it happened to them. They don't know why they're the ones that are chosen to be a targeted individual, or to be harassed, or to be persecuted, or whatever it may be. Whether it is a hate crime, and it is terrorism. It's domestic terrorism. But the same thing was happening while I was in Juarez, Mexico, trying to get a friend out of jail. So, you just never know. And that's international terrorism, because that's over a bridge. But it's something that's going to be brought even more in the public eye day by day. And there's more people that have been targeted. And then there's groups that come after people that have been seen as targeted individuals. Oh man, we can just, we can totally zone in on these people, because these people are targeted. So let's get in on these meetings and listen and see who they are, find out who they are, and we can target them, and we can blame it on the people that were doing the programs and say it was their fault. And that's really sick. That's like a serial murderer to me. And these people need to be put to a stop. They really do, Marianne.
But how do you think that can happen? There's so many of them.
There are so many of them, but what I've been trying to do is focus in on helping just one at a time. And I say one at a time. I have more people reaching out to me and trying to focus in on explaining to them what's happened to them, to where they're not so determined to do self-harm to themselves, or to lock themselves up in a house, being afraid to go out of their house,
right?
Or to let I'm like, stop letting the words trigger you. They're finding your trigger words, and they know what gets to you, so they're trying to get to you. And then I have to ask them, can they gain financially from you? And most times, yeah. Not always, but sometimes, yeah. And they go after everything somebody's worth, and then they terrify them. They talk them. They do sextortion. I hear of all these kids nowadays that are killing themselves because they had, taken a picture of themselves sexually or sent it to somebody. It makes me ill.
Yeah.
Because then they say that it's all other countries. It's not just other countries. It's happening right here in the U.S. too. But they do. And then they say, well, send me $20,000 or I'm going to share these pictures everywhere. I wish they'd share pictures of me. I am completely celibate now. I don't do drugs anymore at all. I haven't in many, many years. But even when I was using them, I wasn't the type of person that ever could have committed a crime like this against anybody. And I don't know whether the society, I think that it's on a downward spiral.
Yes.
And I think that, everybody wants to blame everything on the WEF. They want to blame it on this, blame it on that. It's everything. And the greed in the world today, I'd like to see what happened to love, what happened to understanding, what happened to loyalty. My whole life, I was based on being a good person to people. And sure, I was crazy at times. Who wasn't? But I never deserved to have those things happen to me. Neither do many of the other targets. And just to see that there are so many people that have done no wrong, yet they're targeted this way and hurt and constantly tortured and persecuted and literally left to die, I think is ridiculous. There's so many people that are homeless, that are about to be homeless, that have lost all their financial independence. And I didn't let it get to me to that point. And then when I have literally gone place to place. I have another friend that lives in Gun Barrel City that had the same things happening to him. And he got targeted so hard, bless his heart. He's in the hospital right now in Dallas. And he's a radio broadcaster for 60 years.
Mm.
And I'm like, my God, what in the world is happening? Why does this happen to people?
Mhm.
And I would do anything in the world for people, to help anybody. And when I met Mary Elizabeth Bullock, I fell in love with this woman and the person she is. And
Mhm.
I saw her having these things happen to her. I was like, oh my God, I hope this had nothing to do with me. And then I found out everything that had happened to her before that. I was like, uh-oh, we got copycats again. Because all of a sudden, her accounts are frozen. She ends up having to close her bank accounts. Medicine's being redirected. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same
Mhm.
people that did this to me.
Yeah, I
Because I
was
almost
really,
died. I mean, I haven't had the
yeah.
medication I needed. I couldn't get disability. I couldn't get insurance. I couldn't. And when I tried to get an appointment with a doctor, they said, sure, come on in. And then they called me back 30 minutes later. Oh, we no longer accept your insurance. I was like, what in the heck is going on? It's like somebody's behind me, like hacking into a computer saying this person cannot, be seen. She has to go to a hospital. Go to a hospital and get charged $1,000 so that I can get a prescription for high blood pressure medication. I don't
Mhm.
think so. It's crazy.
It is. And I'm hearing more stories like this. It's just very, when you're saying, what happened to, society as it's spiraling down, circling the drain, this cancel culture where people just believe one thing about someone. And instead of going to the person and saying, hey, I heard this about you, is this true? They just go along with it. And
Right.
I find that really disturbing. And I think that's very similar to gang stalking as well.
Yes, it is. And they turn some of the people that are closest to you in your lifetime against you. But those are not true friends to begin with, honey.
Oh, exactly. Well, when I started my court fiasco, my ex called my parents trying to befriend them. And of course, my father wouldn't talk to him. So that ended that. And then I had to call my lawyer, who wrote a letter to his lawyer saying, don't contact her parents again. But
Right.
that was gang stalking in a way because he got to the other relatives. So what does a person do when you do feel helpless because you've got, individuals coming after you?
Right. Well, in a way, it made me stronger. It
Mhm.
made me realize that the individuals that came after me were never my friends to begin with. And the ones that turned their backs on me or ignored me or stole my belongings, my personal belongings, manipulated data to where it was put in other people's names, those were never people I should have ever been associated with. And
Mhm.
they were people that I trusted during my lifetime, that I loved during my lifetime. And it makes me realize that love is a word that you need to hold very dear, because I
Right.
think in true honesty, I can count my truest friends on two hands in my life and not even two full hands. And that's sad considering that I used to feel like I was popular, like I'd done so much for so many other people. I did do for them, but when I needed something, they weren't there for me.
Yes. Yeah.
But a few of them were, and a few of them had doubts. They were like, "What's happening here?" But now that the proof has come out, and I have the proof of everything that happened with me, a lot of them don't know it all. But I've had I've had people be like, "What can you be talking about?" I've had voices come through me, and all of a sudden I'll start talking in Spanish, or I'll start talking in Latin, or I'll start talking another language, and I'm like, "Okay." So, and people look at me like, "What in the hell is wrong with you?" I've always spoken Spanish, but I've never really spoken Latin. I've never really spoken other languages. I've had other languages come through me. I'm like, damn, am I getting hacked by China?
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily China. It's very, very intense to me. I have found myself reaching out to people in other countries that are, and I became very, very, very close, as I said, to people in the UK and to a woman in New Zealand that is an angel to me. And she's been going through the same thing. She says she's been under attack. She had her finances attacked. She hasn't been able, and she was considered an anointed queen.
Mm.
And she said, thank you so much for trying to help me. Someday something will bless you. And I was like, you know what? You just did. Just your words do.
Mhm.
And I met her through Mary Elizabeth. And so I've connected people that are closer to each other, trying to get them to at least be support emotionally and being able to talk to somebody. Because I think that there's times when people just want somebody to talk to that understands it and can explain it to them. I've had people call me on the phone and yell and scream just to get their emotions out. And I'm like, please do, just go ahead and scream at me. Go ahead and let it all out. And afterwards,
Mhm.
I'm gonna try to help you understand why you're doing that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, okay, I should have either been a psychiatrist or that actually cared about people, or a
Yeah.
counselor, or some kind of lawyer, because God, I'd love to help all these people. I really
Oh,
would.
yes. Yep.
But you know what? One of the best attorneys in the world is Anna Toledo, and that woman has taken the bull by the horns. She is amazing, from Houston, and she's been a targeted individual for years, and very openly so. But I spoke yesterday with Derek Robinson. I said, Derek, do you mind if I mention your name and your organization? He said, no, go right ahead. He helps people that have, as I said, PACs, that people against covert torture, and he's amazing. He is amazing, and he's like, I told him about some of my situations, and he's always trying to come up with something, trying to help every single person he can. And so it's been happening for so many years, and people have kept it down below, or they, gang stalk people. People don't understand it. People, whatever. There's been very few people that have been able to face it head on like people have within the last 10 years.
Mhm.
And it's really, really starting to get into courts, and it's going to have to be somehow curbed and put to a stop, because it's ridiculous how out of control it is nowadays.
Well,
But I find myself, and what invigorates me every day and gives me energy is being able to focus in and try to help other people. And I may be broke. It seems like every time I've tried to have somebody help me I've had people say, don't use GoFundMe, because they hacked into that within minutes, froze his accounts. I had asked for help on Facebook. Before that, they locked me out of my Facebook account, and I haven't gotten back on Facebook. I think that's the root of all evil. I had this thing come through where some people tried to fraud me by sending me a message on Messenger, acting like they were somebody that I had just seen in El Paso, Texas, saying, Autumn, did you get the thing about the lottery you can win for $150,000? Go open a bank account and you'll be able to get this. And it was so realistic at that time. I actually went and opened a bank account at Wood Forest Bank in Plano, Texas. And then when I walked out of the bank, I thought, I need to call him for some reason and find out that was really him. I called him. He goes, what are you talking about? They had literally talked me in to going and opening up an account at Wood Forest Bank, saying I'd won $150,000. They were trying to get me to get $2,500 so they could steal that from me too. After knowing I was sick, knowing I was going through all these things, this is how horribly awful these people are. They're very cult-like, and they've been known for doing this kind of fraud. And then, seeing the fraud that happened to Mary Elizabeth, it's the same thing. The puppy, her bank accounts, everything she's done has been hacked. And so now she's getting a new bank account. Now she's going through all these things, but I see her getting stronger in the process of it, because now she has her medication, thank God, that they redirected for 4 months.
Yeah, thank
She
God
almost
for
died.
that. Yeah.
I got here, she could not get out of bed. Now she's out of bed, thank God.
Oh,
But she'd have been, and I seriously think that if I had not gotten here, and out of kindness of Rob Montes' heart, he had not gotten me back here, I think Mary Elizabeth would not be with us right now.
that is just, I'm so glad you're there, with her to help her. What people go through. A lot of people don't know this stuff goes on, and the pain that people go through, and they keep quiet about it.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want to ever reach out and ask for help. I'm not afraid to. I'm not afraid to make it public. Most people are like, well, I'm kind of embarrassed, I don't want to say this. But when somebody has been a civil servant, like she has been, and is in the financial ruin she is right now because of all these things happening, she's worried about opening a bank account, having everything transferred, doing this, that. But, having, the fear of her medications being messed with the way they've been messed with, that's what she needs to stay alive. I mean, I needed my medication too, but somehow, through the grace of God, I've been able to be okay. Yeah, my blood pressure still runs 244 over 185 or something, but you know what? I'm alive. And I don't trust the medical profession anymore after going through what I went through with disability, especially in Texas. I don't. I had to apply for food stamps, didn't get them for 3 years. And then when I finally got them, that's what I've had to depend on part of the time while Mary Elizabeth's accounts were shut here for us to even have food.
Oh my goodness. Well,
it's absolutely asinine.
Well, I'd like to have you come back onto the podcast, because I know I don't want to keep you too much longer. But
Well, thank you so much. As this progresses, I'd love to anytime.
oh, I definitely would like you to pop back on. And how can you be reached if people have any questions?
They can reach me at my email.
Mhm.
You have it there, I think.
That is purple automatic AUTOMATIC at AOL.com. I will put that in the podcast notes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, I can be reached there anytime.
Is there any advice you could give people, like, if when this starts happening in their lives? You know,
Please reach out to one of those organizations. Please reach out to me anytime. I'd be glad to point you the right direction. There's also a publication called the Everyday Concerned Citizen that has a lot of information in it as well. They might want to look that up.
why, thank you very much. Don't jump off, okay?
Okay.
Slam the Gavels, a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth, and Raised by These Wolves, How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart Radio, Anchor FM, Apple iTunes, and other platforms I don't know about. And feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. I totally thank you, Autumn Mattox, for
Thank you
coming
so much,
on.
Marianne.
And we will meet again.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
will.
Okay.